Chairs No Waiting, episode number 529, Things You May Not Know. Two Chairs No Waiting is brought to you by the folks over at weaversdepartmentstore.com. Drop by over at Weavers and check out some of the fun new items they've got over there. One of them is the barbershop hairstyles print, like they had in Floyd's Barbershop. It's a recreation of that. Go and check it out. It's pretty neat. It's on cardstock, heavyweight cardstock, so you guys can go check it out. They're 16 by 20. You can pick them up at Weavers. While you're there, think about getting some of the Mayberry's finest coffee. Got 3 different kinds to choose from over at weaversdepartmentstore.com. Two Chairs No Waiting is also brought to you by donations from listeners just like you. And I want to thank you all for your support. Hello, everybody. I'm Alan Newsome, and it's me that you're supporting, so I thank you very much if you're supporting me. And even if you're just here, I thank you for being here. So thank you for showing up. We're going to be talking about things you may not know. Boom, boom, boom. I need some music for that. But we're going to talk about things you may not know about the Andy Griffith Show, or the characters of the Andy Griffith Show, or the people involved in the Andy Griffith Show. We're going to hit a few of them tonight. And if you guys like this, we may go through a few more weeks of things like this, so that you can just get, these are kind of a general knowledge and a little bit of trivial background for, I guess, casual viewers and maybe some of the fans that are real diehard down in the weeds Andy Griffith Show fans as well. So we're going to be doing that, and we're going to hear from Randy Turner, and we have an email that came in about last week's episode about where's Sarah? Where was Sarah? That episode. So let's get this thing going. All right. So things you may not know about Mayberry. Let's go to there. So you may not know this about comic books. When the Andy Griffith Show was on the air, that's been a while, but when it was on the air, Dell Comics is a comic book company. They released 2 comic books with the Andy Griffith in its name. Andy Griffith was part of the name of the comic books to help promote the show. The comic artist portrayed Opie in those comic books as having blonde hair instead of red. And that's possibly because the TV show aired in black and white, and he didn't know Ron Howard's actual hair color. That's a possibility. Or it's a possibility they couldn't do red hair. Maybe it would just look red. I don't know. The first volume of the series was published from January to March of 1961, and it's titled Andy Griffith. While volume 2 was released in April to June of 1962 and is titled The Andy Griffith Show. Get this, guys. If you had near mint condition copies of these, back in 2004, a pair of them here, they were sold, they were mint condition or near mint. These were sold and priced for $500 each. Now that was in the near mint condition, which means, as a comic book guy, I can kind of give you a hint here, but it means there's no creases. The cover looks really good. It might have just a little bit of flaking around the staples that hold it on the side. Just very, very minimal. So almost perfect copies of these were $500 in 2004. Have no idea how much they'd be worth today. So there you go. So there's the first one about comic books. Did you know that there was comic books about the Andy Griffith Show? There was. And this is I Ain't No Rock Thrower. Now you should know this one because we've talked about this in the past and we've heard it directly from Bruce Billison. But in the opening credits of the Andy Griffith Show, opening credits, Opie, he throws the rock into the water. He picks it up and throws it into the lake. Well, it turns out in the first season, at least, Opie, who was played by Ronnie Howard, he couldn't actually throw the rock himself, not well enough for it to land where he needed it and all that. He couldn't get enough arch on it. He just couldn't throw it out there far enough. So Ronnie was only 6 years old at the time. Or actually, he may have been a little younger, but he was 6 years old at the time when the show was on. So he didn't really have enough strength to throw the rock far enough so that the production assistant, he ended up hiding in some bushes or trees over to the right. So if you're looking at the show on the screen, Opie's walking up to the trail. He runs and gets the rock and he runs up there. Well, the production assistant, he kind of hid over to the right there in some bushes and trees. And when Ronnie threw his rock, he kind of threw it to the right so that it kind of go off of the camera. And then the rock actually comes flying in and splashes in the water coming from the right side over by the tree line and into the water. Yeah. So if you can picture that, it's like he threw a really good curveball. He threw it out to the right and it curved back around and came in from the right, splash into the water. So if you watch an episode, if you watch an episode of the first season, watch the opening credits and you'll be able to see there's just a slight delay as well. It's like Bruce Billison talked about when Opie threw the rock, he goes, now, and the other guy threw it to make it land in the water. Well, there's just a slight delay in the time between when the rock's thrown and when it should have landed in the water. If you just watch that, and plus you can kind of see the splash kind of goes from right to the left across your screen. So check that out. So that's there you go. That's a little bit more trivia for you. All right. So related to the opening credits, talking about the opening credits there, when Opie was throwing that rock, okay, so watch that. When he throws it, you actually see Andy kind of, I don't know, he kind of nods and shakes his head and nods as he does that. Well, that was kind of acknowledgement from Andy Taylor, Opie's pa, by Andy Griffith. He was acting as Andy Taylor. It was kind of acknowledging it as he threw that rock, as Andy was still walking up to where Opie was standing, right? Because remember, Opie took off running, and he gets up there and he throws the rock, right? So Andy kind of nods his head and comes on up there like, good job, things like that. Well, Andy Griffith honestly didn't notice the nod until several years later. And he realized that his dad, Andy Griffith's dad, had used nods or shake of the head like that in a very similar way when telling Andy that he had done, nice job, good work. He had showed him that. And Andy had picked up on that from his father and didn't really even realize he was doing it when he was portraying Andy Taylor on the show. And both Andy and Ron Howard had said that their characters and the way they portrayed their characters and the relationship between them, they both drew those from their fathers. So Andy was behaving more like his father, as Andy Taylor, and Opie was acting toward Andy Taylor as Ron Howard acted toward Rance Howard. So they both admitted that. So I thought that was really neat that Andy had not even realized he does that. He's like, yeah, good job. Shaking his head and nodding. Yeah, good job. Which if you think about it, he did that a lot on different episodes, but he picked it up from his father. Now, be careful what you do around your kids because they will pick up any habit that you might have like that. So there you go. That one's not a bad one, but I thought you might enjoy that. All right. So next up. All right. So we've all seen the Andy Griffith Show and know that, that Barney and Andy on the Andy Griffith Show, they were referred to as cousins, right? So in season 1 of the Andy Griffith Show, we had Barney and Andy saying that they were cousins. I just thank you for this job and giving me a chance. And I just want to thank you, cousin Andy. You remember that? Well, they referred to, Barney and Andy as being cousins, or saying, well, cousin Barney, I appreciate that. And, the writers actually said, and it came out later, that was actually just satire about how folks in small towns get positions. Because they're related to somebody and not necessarily because of merit. And that was kind of what they were portraying there. And just for a laugh and to make it funny. Well, after a few references to Andy and Barney being cousins, the idea was just completely dropped. They never mentioned it again. As the seasons progressed, Andy referred to Barney as a relative. He never referred to him as a relative again, but rather as a close friend or a childhood friend, or they went to school together, all those kind of things. That's how Andy knew Barney. Personally, I have a cousin that I didn't really know was my cousin until after we were friends. Now, I know that sounds weird. I grew up in a small town, but I didn't know that we were cousins. And when I talk about him, I usually reference him as my friend from high school and rarely mention that he's my cousin. it comes up in conversation eventually, but we'd never talk about it. We're friends. We're friends, and we've been friends since we were in high school. But I honestly didn't realize he was related to me until we were already friends. And, I always thought that's kind of what happened with Andy and Barney. Now, granted, stop the podcast if you don't want to hear this, but I realize, this hurts me to say, the Andy Griffith Show it is a television show, not just television, but it's a television show. There are writers involved, and there are people, and so they made mistakes or they changed things like that, from Andy changing the way he talked, from being real country to being less so. I realize that. But as a fan of the Andy Griffith Show, I think we're always trying to figure out, okay, what can we do to, as they would call it today in movies like the Avengers movies and things that everybody's watched, how you retcon, or how you go back and fix in your mind what happened. So that's how I always did it. So Andy and Barney really were cousins. They just, that was beside the point. They were friends. And it never really said they're first cousins, second cousins. My friend that I talked about from high school, we're third cousins, I think, or maybe second cousins once removed. Could be that. But anyway, there you go. That's my theory. They were really cousins. I don't care what the writers say. They were really cousins, but they were friends first. And so that was the first thing they always thought of, is being friends. Whew, I beat that horse to death. Let's go on to the next one. This one is one I'm sure many of you guys know, but did you know that Barney Fife even is one of the most memorable characters on the Andy Griffith Show? I think we would all agree that he's probably the character, other than maybe Andy, that people think of when they think of the Andy Griffith Show, is Barney Fife. That's the one. That's kind of like Happy Days and Fonzie. I realize Richie should have been the star, but he wasn't. It was the Fonz. We all know this. Same thing on the Andy Griffith Show. Andy was the star, but Barney was Barney was amazing, right? So we all know that. But the strange thing about this major character on the show that we all love is that we're completely unsure about what his middle name is. We know his name's Bernard Fife. We know that. But going through all 8 seasons, fans will notice that Barney had not 1 and not 2, but 3 middle names. Now, granted, one of the middle names is just an initial, but it doesn't match the other 2 middle names. So it's a third middle name, in my opinion. So he had, of course, P was the most common, Bernard P. Fife. Bernard P. Fife, attorney at law. You just got to love it. Now, in other episodes, his middle name was Oliver or Milton, right? So it seems like a case of the writers struggling to agree or not having a good, Bible that they wrote by back in those days. The continuity might not have been quite as good as some of the things are today. But I'm going to go that Barney's full name is Bernard Milton P. Oliver Fife. And maybe there's a Duncan or something in there. Duncan Fife. I don't know. But Bernard Milton P. Oliver Fife. We used to have a guy in one of our chat rooms that's what he went by, Milton P. Oliver. That was clever. Everybody, Mayberry folks. So there you go. Barney had 3 middle names, if you count an initial as a middle name. I do. So it's Bernard P. Fife, Bernard Milton Fife, and Bernard Oliver Fife. Those were the 3. If there's any others, I don't know of them. All right, so those are some things you may not know. I don't know. Things you may not know about the Andy Griffith Show. Hey, that rhymes. I should have made that the title. Things you may not know about the Andy Griffith Show. There you go. All right, so now, as you, I hope, enjoyed some of those. Maybe there was one of them you didn't know about, or maybe not. All right, so before we go on into Randy's, I want to tell you right now, I'm going to talk about the Andy Griffith Show like it isn't a real place. So if you'd like to skip this portion, feel free. All right, because it bothers me, but I got an email And from the Untrained Voice. Now, the Untrained Voice is the person who has written some of the episodes that you may have listened to that were with Floyd and Bert Miller, where they're doing those, some of the radio show versions that I've done of the podcast. If you haven't heard those, you need to check them out. They're really good. But here's his explanation of why in A Man in a Hurry, there was no Sarah. Okay. So this is from a writer's point of view, because he's a writer. Okay. All of us fans know that Mayberry is a real place in our hearts and that the characters lived there. But the writers lived in a similar but different community called Mayberry. A shortened version of Facts May Vary. It is the constraints of the show, written in the era before video recorders and computer written dialogues, when continuity for just one episode was a challenge, let alone facts across a season or even multiple seasons. So they keep that continuity there. Living in the Facts May Vary, that town, Facts May Vary, also gave the writers more freedom to create situations for a story, a storyline that was unencumbered by facts that had been previously established in other episodes. They obviously tried to comply with some of the basic tenets to develop the characters, but even those facts varied at times. For instance, Gomer was a mechanical genius in later episodes, but in the episode Man in a Hurry, he couldn't do anything but gas, oil, and water and air. That's all he could do. And he was studying up to be a doctor. His cousin Goober would first be called Goober Beasley, but later he was Goober Pyle. These are things in the Facts May Vary universe. Aunt Bee was a fabulous cook, but somehow she couldn't make pickles, and in fact made awful pickles. Facts about the Taylor home, they varied from not having a back porch to having a back porch, to having a closet inside the front door and to not having it. And then in A Man in a Hurry, not having a guest room and forcing Opie to apparently sleep on an ironing board between two chairs. That all happened in that episode. But later episodes, they had a guest room many different times where people stayed with them, with Gomer or Uncle Ollie and, Aunt Nora and the family. They had guest rooms for some of these folks. So in Facts May Vary, that town, where the writers lived, is it such a twist that Sarah doesn't exist for an episode or so? No, of course not. Fred Plummer only existed for one episode, and then he just disappears. And only boys help Foley, but Fred's face seems to show up all over town. So there's no, he's a different person later on. Fred is. Lucy Matthews, George Safferly, Ed Sawyer, and others, they appear and then they just disappear. We never see them again. So the Man in the Hurry episode involved a telephone system with no operator, because where the writers lived, facts may vary, because it makes a good story. Is Barney a cousin or is he not? Does Andy talk like a Southern hick in season 1, or does he not in all the other seasons? Tuscarora, Boojum Snark, Spirit of the Fire, Brilliant Trant, Spirit of the Water, and Grovely Barch, or Kenneth Van Telecki. All those came and went, and, there's an operator, or maybe there's not an operator. That's what the story needed. The Untrained Voice from Mayberry, North Carolina. So thank you, Untrained Voice, for that. And that is, I know we all, like I said, Mayberry is a place in our heart. Those people who live there, we care about them. We love the show. We think of them as real people, partially because I, at least, know people that very, very much remind me of the people in Mayberry. I mean, a lot. So I think that's why we want to believe it was almost a real place, but it wasn't, I have to admit. Ouch. And the writers did, do things to make fun situations while still trying to be real to the characters. So I think that's why we ended up with some of the things we've talked about today. I think, like I said, we often don't want to think about that, but yeah, really, Aunt Bee couldn't make pickles, or at the very least didn't know they tasted terrible. I mean, she was a great cook. She would have had to know. All you got to do is taste one. She did taste them, and went, my, these are good. So she must know when she made the others, and the marmalade for that matter, that they weren't good. So anyway, all right, that horse is beat as well. So let's move on and hear from Randy Turner and This Week in Mayberry History.
Welcome to This Week in Mayberry History, a report by special correspondent Randy Turner of the Gomer and Cooper Pyle Comic Book Literary Guild of the Mayberry Historical Society.
Bing Russell was born on May the 5th, 1926 in Brattleboro, Vermont. His interests in the two professions which he is known for began early. He was acting and studying drama while in high school in Vermont. During the summers, his father operated a float plane business in Florida, and Bing became the New York Yankees' unofficial mascot during their spring training. Bing became friendly with many well-known players, including Joe DiMaggio. When Lou Gehrig was forced to retire due to illness, he gave Bing the bat he used to hit his last home run. Bing first appeared in television in his mid-20s, playing Lazarus in 3 episodes of the 1951 12-episode low-budget miniseries, The Living Christ series. Will Wright, who later played Ben Weaver in Mayberry, was Herod. Throughout the 1950s and early in his career, Bing appeared in many Western series, including Tales of Wells Fargo, Wanted, Dead or Alive, Maverick, and Have Gun Will Travel. Bing's first more memorable role was in the small part of Robert in The Magnificent Seven, the classic 1960 American Western remake of the Japanese film The Seven Samurai. While he did not appear exclusively in Westerns, Bing continued to be frequently seen in the 1960s in series such as Bronco, Rawhide, Laramie, Death Valley Days, Gunsmoke, and The Big Valley. He did appear in other series during this time, of course, including 2 episodes of The Twilight Zone and The Andy Griffith Show. Bing played a construction worker blasting to build an underpass near Mayberry when Jimmy the Goat ate some of the crew's dynamite. The same year Bing appeared in Mayberry, he also appeared for the first time in the role for which he is best remembered. He played Deputy Clem Foster in 55 episodes of Bonanza between 1963 and 1972. After Bing left Bonanza, he did continue to act occasionally throughout the 1970s, but also began a second career for which he is well remembered. In 1973, Bing bought what was initially the only independent professional baseball team in the country, the Portland Mavericks, based in Portland, Oregon. Bing was an innovator in several regards. He kept corporate sponsorship outside the gates of the ballpark. He hired the first female general manager in professional baseball. He allowed the team's tryouts to be open to all, and so he drew many ex-Major League players who wanted one last season. Bing was the father of actor Kurt Russell, who had quite a successful career as a child actor beginning in 1963. In the early 1970s, Kurt left acting to play minor league baseball in California and eventually Double-A in Texas. After he was injured in a game, Kurt was a designated hitter for the Portland Mavericks for a month during the team's inaugural season before he decided to return to acting in 1974. The Portland Mavericks continued to grow in popularity over the next 5 years, and by 1977 was breaking attendance records for a minor league team. This resulted in Major League Baseball regaining an interest in Portland. Bing was offered $25 million for the franchise, but famously told them to add a 0 between the 2 and the 5 and they could talk. When they refused, Bing took the matter to arbitration, and received $206 million for the team, the largest ever paid for a Class A baseball team. After leaving baseball and late in his career, Bing memorably played Elvis Presley's father, Vernon, opposite his real-life son, Kurt, as the rock and roll star, and the 1979 made-for-television biopic, Elvis. He also had small roles in 2 later Kurt Russell movies, Overboard and Tango and Cash. Bing passed away in 2003. Well, that's it for this week. As always, thank you for listening, and remember to take Andy's advice and go out there and act like somebody.
Wow, thank you, Randy. And folks, if you don't want to miss any of the great stuff that Randy's doing online, send him an email at turnersgrade@gmail.com, and he'll make sure you don't miss anything. It's turnersgrade@gmail.com. So Randy did a thing at a library not long ago. He did a presentation, and it went very well, and he's talking about doing it at other places. So make sure you sign up to Turner to his email thing there. I just say definitely do that. You'll definitely want to do that. turnersgrade@gmail.com. Randy, thank you, and thank you for being here with me as part of the podcast. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope I didn't take away any of the fun by saying the Andy Griffith Show is not real. It is real, but it was a show, and there were writers, and those writers do make choices about the things they're writing about. And, sometimes things are just inconsistent. The continuity is just not exactly perfect. While I think we can come up with reasons why we can fix that as much as possible, and that's what we try to do. So, folks, I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope you enjoyed the podcast. I would love to hear from you. You can give me a call at 888-684-8415 and tell me what you think. And you can also email me at floyd@imayberry.com or head over to twochairsnowaiting.com, and all that information is there about how to contact me. I would love to hear from you. It's always fun hearing from fans of the show. And we'll be back here. And if you liked the stuff we talked about, things you might not have known, please let me know that. And I'll do some more of those kind of things too that are, I don't know, just things that fans might want to know that they may not know. All right. So let me know, and we'll see you guys next time right here on Two Chairs.